Macmillan Audio presents The Midnight Watch by David Dyer. Read for you by Robert Fass. Part 1. Chapter 1. In the early years of the 20th century, my father heard that there was good money to be made in Venezuela. He had reliable information from a Spaniard who knew a cattle herder who knew the Venezuelan president personally, that more oil seeps had been discovered and that further concessions would soon be granted. Although I was living in Boston and had profitable work as a journalist, I agreed to go with him. His plan was to explore the seeps, obtain concessions, and sell them on. A year's work to make a fortune, he said. He also said my wife, Olive, and 2 young children could come too. It would be perfectly safe. But it was not safe. A month after our arrival, my baby son got a fever, and a week later he was dead. He was 4 months old. On the morning that he died, the local women came to help my wife dress his tiny body in white robes and rub red powder into his cheeks. They placed him gently among flowers and candles. Olive would not let me touch the baby. I had killed him by bringing him here. I had no more rights over him. He stayed where he was for the whole day, and then another. I was not allowed to bury him. On the 3rd day, I took Harriet, our 6-year-old daughter, to my father's temporary office, a ramshackle building on stilts a few miles north, along the shore of a swampy, sulphurous asphalt lake. I planned to keep her busy and show her that life went on. We visited nearby seeps, unpacked equipment, and spoke to local workers. At dusk, we watched lightning dance among the vapors of the lake. The effect was dramatic and unearthly. Harriet squealed and clapped her hands. I was pleased. I wanted her to see that the spark that was no longer in her brother existed elsewhere, that there was energy all around. But when we arrived home in the early evening, we saw that the family chickens had been slaughtered in their pens. They lay in the mud, featherless and mutilated. Harriet, who had tended these birds, given them names and collected their eggs, slipped her quivering hand into mine. She said nothing. Perhaps she knew what was coming. As we climbed the stairs, we heard rhythmic clapping and the singing of songs in Spanish. I held Harriet's hand tight and opened the door. The mosquito nets had been removed from the windows and candles placed on the sills. A makeshift altar of taller candles had been built on the floor, around which local women, 6 or so, all dressed in white, sat on boxes. When they saw us, they sang and clapped louder, rocking back and forth. In the center of the room, on the floor near the altar, sat my wife. Perhaps she had drunk liquor, because she did not seem to notice us. Harriet began to cry. At first I did not know why, but then I saw. Her mother was holding thin hemp strings that ran up to the ceiling through a crude system of blocks and pulleys. I followed the strings upwards and saw, suspended from the central beam, the body of my son. He too was dressed in white and covered in feathers. Bird wings, still bloody, were attached to his shoulders, and they opened and closed as my wife pulled the strings. A woman came to Harriet.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?